how God took our deepest pain and turned it into our purpose. From a young age, I dreamed of becoming a mother, and I felt God calling me to that role long before I could fully understand how much faith it would take to make that dream a reality. At 18 years old, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome and endometriosis. When I met my husband, Christian, he quickly saw the depth of my desire to become a mother. I told him half-jokingly, "You're either my husband or you're not, buddy." Thankfully, my boldness didn't scare him away, and we were engaged just 7 months later. As we entered marriage, the reality of my PCOS and endometriosis weighed heavily on us. We were told more than once that conceiving and carrying a pregnancy to term might be nearly impossible. But despite those harsh realities, Christian and I held on to the hope that we would one day become parents. The first 2 years of our marriage were a season of unrelenting struggle. We faced a constant stream of negative pregnancy tests, each one a painful reminder of what we so desperately wanted but couldn't seem to reach. Doctors called it unexplained infertility, but for us, it was a heartbreaking journey of longing, prayer, and uncertainty. Every cycle felt like another door closing, another dream slipping further out of reach. In the summer of 2021, we conceived our first miracle baby, June Claire. We were overjoyed beyond words. It felt like a dream come true, and in my heart, I never once allowed myself to consider the possibility of miscarriage. I was naive, believing that pregnancy loss was something that only happened to other families, as if it was a hereditary trait. After all, there was no history of pregnancy loss in either of our families. But in an instant, our world came crashing down. A few weeks later, during a routine ultrasound, we learned that our miracle baby's heart had stopped beating 2 weeks prior. The joy we had felt just weeks before was replaced with disbelief and agony. The loss of June Claire, the baby we had dreamed of, the baby we had prayed for, shattered us in ways we didn't know we could be broken. There are no words to fully express the depth of grief we felt after our first loss. The excitement of playing in the nursery, dreaming of baby showers, and sharing our joy with family and friends, all of it was ripped away in an instant. In its place, we were consumed by sleepless nights with the unbearable awareness that our baby was no longer alive inside me. The next morning, I would face the heart-wrenching reality of a D&C procedure to remove the child we had so dearly longed for. What we never could have anticipated was that losing June Claire was just the beginning of our excruciating journey. Over the next year and a half, we would endure the pain of 5 consecutive pregnancy losses, each one more devastating than the last. It felt as though the weight of our sorrow would break us, as each new loss piled on top of the one before, leaving us gasping for breath, trying to hold on to hope in a season that felt intolerably heavy. Throughout our recurrent losses, my husband and I were met with the deafening silence that so often surrounds infertility, pregnancy loss, and infant loss. It was a silence that felt suffocating, a silence that seemed to mock the deep grief that we were carrying. But amid that silence, we found our own way to breathe by speaking life into each one of our 5 heavenly babies. We refused to mourn in silence. Each baby, though not physically with us, was loved deeply, and we were determined to honor their short lives with the same love and voice that we would have if they were here with us on earth. The last thing we wanted was to let their memory fade into quiet shadows. The truth is, statistics show that more than 25% of women in this very room have experienced a pregnancy loss. And I want to say this to you tonight. No matter what lies the enemy has tried to whisper in your heart, it is not your fault. You are not defined by your loss. You are not alone in your grief. And your story, like ours, is one of courage and hope. Without our unwavering faith in God's promises, I honestly don't know how we would have weathered this storm. His strength became our anchor when everything else felt uncertain. We were blessed to have the support of our parish family, who surrounded us with love and his light through each of our losses. In time, God began to show us that our pain wasn't just for us to carry. It was about learning how to reach out and pour into the grieving hearts of others, those who are silently suffering, just as we once did. Our journey of loss became a pathway to help others find hope in their own grief, showing them that even in their deepest sorrow, there is a way to rise, to heal, and to love again. The Bible speaks of waiting in over 116 instances, and during our anguish, I found solace in knowing that each of our 5 heavenly babies was born directly into the most perfect hands, those of our Creator. They were never truly lost. They were simply received by God, waiting for us in the eternal embrace of His love. Throughout our marriage, Christian and I found ourselves repeatedly returning to the idea of adoption. We both felt a deep calling from God to open our hearts and home to a child in need, but the doors just weren't opening yet. We were overwhelmed by the cost, the complexities, and the lack of clear direction. I remember countless hours spent browsing adoption websites and agencies, trying to piece together the logistics and pricing, only to be disheartened by the staggering price tags, and especially by the substantially lower cost listed for babies with special needs. It was in that moment that profound truth settled in our hearts. If God ever opened the doors for us to adopt, we wanted to love that child, special needs or not, with a love greater than anyone could ever imagine. We knew that whatever the world saw as maybe more of a challenge, we would see as a blessing, a precious life entrusted to us by God. On Friday, January 13th, 2023, we received a phone call from a close friend and mentor at our church that changed our lives forever. I'd like to share that voicemail with you now.
Hey Taylor, it's me, Angie. Hey, I have a strange question for you, but you and Christian has popped instantly in my mind. I had a friend reach out who is in touch with a family. There was a baby born January 6th that may or may not have some, maybe some like musculoskeletal issues that it has this like medical things that they're testing right now for those. So that the adopted family has decided that that's not going to be a good fit for them, and so this baby is a home. And I didn't know if that's anything that you guys like would consider or not. So I guess I just wanted to know if you wanted more information or not. If you do, give me a call back. I don't have it. But I could put you in touch with someone who, I guess you just kind of tell you where things are at in this process. And if not, of course, totally understood. I just wanted to run it by you. So anyway, hope you guys are doing well, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.
It's very real being able to look at that exact person right now, all of this in one place. I gave her a warning before the speech that I was going to be polite, should be hearing her voice, but I'm so grateful that we didn't answer her call that night, because going back from that voicemail has been something that my husband and I have cherished so much. And I distinctly remember with that voicemail listening to it after we ate dinner and looking at Christian and saying, desperate search for a couple ready to adopt under any circumstance, considered us. I'll never forget the moment we walked into that building, saw Lucy for the first time, and held her in our arms. We left with her that day, our daughter. My heart was a mixture of pure joy and overwhelming disbelief. Christian's face was filled with excitement, terror, and every emotion in between. Like he was seeing the most beautiful thing he had ever seen, and simultaneously realizing just how much our lives were about to change. It was one of those moments when the weight of it all hits you, but you know somehow this is where we were always meant to be. Christian's eyes said it all that day. They were full of a blend of wonder, joy, and the raw, uncertain vulnerability of becoming parents in the most unexpected way. Our prayers had been answered. We were finally becoming parents on earth, but we were stepping into the unknown with a baby whose medical conditions were still a mystery. As if our hearts couldn't be any fuller, less than 24 hours after receiving that initial life-altering voicemail about Lucy, we learned that we were pregnant. Only God. It was almost too much to comprehend, like a whirlwind of miracles unfolding all at once. In the blink of an eye, everything we knew, everything we were, had changed forever. During this time, we repeatedly heard God quietly asking us, "Do you trust me?" And with each passing moment, with each new layer of uncertainty and fear, we chose to answer with a resounding yes. We chose to place our trust in Him, knowing that His plan was bigger than our worries, greater than our fears. He had carried us this far, through the pain and the waiting, through the loss and the longing. And now He was blessing us with a double portion, more than we could have ever imagined. It was a gift beyond our understanding, but one that was distinctly His doing. Navigating the first trimester of pregnancy while caring for a newborn at home was every bit as challenging as you can imagine. I vividly remember those early morning feedings with Lucy when I'd have to pass her off to Christian just so I could manage my overwhelming nausea. It felt like a balancing act between joy and exhaustion, love and physical discomfort. There was a time I accidentally dropped a saltine crumb, the one I was eating to cope with my morning sickness, into her tiny 2-month-old eyeball while she was drinking from the bottle. The look of confusion and frustration on both of our faces led to a moment of tears for the both of us. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. But through all the chaos and challenges, by the grace of God, we reached a moment of pure joy. As of 35 days ago today, our daughter officially became Lucy Jean Proud, and her adoption was finalized. Aside from the emotional challenges of pregnancy after a loss, we felt incredibly blessed to be experiencing a healthy pregnancy. However, at 12 weeks gestation, my OB detected that our baby's bladder was enlarging and that my amniotic fluid was beginning to decrease. Although he believed it was a minor issue, he referred us to a high-risk specialist, assuring us that they would likely need to drain the baby's bladder and that we would soon overcome this unexpected hurdle. I distinctly remember being in a state of shock during the ultrasound at the high-risk doctor's office when I heard the words, "You need to terminate this pregnancy. Your baby will never survive." It was a moment of profound disbelief and anguish. As the specialist continued to explain why elective termination was being presented as our only option, my husband and I, in a daze, glanced up at the video screen. And despite everything, despite the devastating news, there on the screen was our precious baby, moving, kicking, alive. In that moment, God gave us a gift we couldn't have anticipated, a powerful reminder that hope and life exist during the storm. It was the purest example of God's faithfulness, right there in front of us. This is the exact moment captured on the ultrasound screen, our miracle, defying the odds and giving us the strength to keep going. Doesn't take a sonographer to see what that looks like. As you can see in the image, our they continue to be a monumental part of our child's journey of faith and hope. Within days of that devastating appointment, God led us to a new pro-life high-risk doctor, a doctor whose heart and expertise aligned perfectly with our values. This doctor had personally trained at one of only 3 hospitals in the entire country where surgeons could perform the prayer and neurosurgery our baby needed to survive. And as if that wasn't miraculous enough, we soon discovered that this doctor wasn't just highly skilled. He was a parishioner at our own very church. Only him. At 17 weeks gestation, we traveled to Houston, Texas, to meet with one of the few surgeons capable and willing to perform the procedure. Our baby's bladder was nearly 3 times the size of his head, and there was no detectable amniotic fluid in my womb. We continued to choose faith over fear. During the surgery, I was kept lucid, a surreal experience as I was asked to help maneuver my body and assist in rotating our baby for the procedure. I can still vividly recall the warm, comforting rush as synthetic amniotic fluid was slowly injected into my womb, a moment that felt both foreign and intimate. The surgeon then carefully placed a small pigtail shunt into our baby's bladder, allowing the fluid to drain into my abdomen. It was a delicate, high-risk procedure with no guarantees. The baby could potentially dislodge the shunt at any time, and we knew there was the chance that the surgery might not work. Yet despite the uncertainty, we remained unwavering in our confidence. We knew deep in our hearts that God's hand was covering this child. He had already led us through so much, and we trusted that He would continue to guide us through this too. I have a pre- and post-surgery ultrasound that captures the pivotal moment in our journey, and I'd love to share it with you. It's more than a medical image. It's a glimpse of a miracle in progress. So the left side of the screen is our son pre-surgery. It's a side profile. Any sonographers? It's okay, I can depict it. It's a side profile. You can see his head on the left. What's on the right there, that left image, is his bladder. It doesn't even fit in the entire picture. It was 3 times the size of his head. It was just this dark black hole that we got to see with, I was having ultrasounds 1 to 2 times a week every week throughout the entire pregnancy, and it was very difficult to see each week that bladder just distended. The top right photo actually shows, it's an image of our son's abdomen, and what looks like a broken pencil going into his stomach is that pigtail shunt that they inserted through my abdomen into his abdomen, into his bladder, to drain his bladder into my stomach for amniotic fluid. And you can see the black wave around him is all of that beautiful amniotic fluid that I went so long without in the womb. The bottom picture is what he was doing during that ultrasound. Ready to take on the doctors if they tried to poke him with any more needles. And my husband prayerfully had very strong conversations with him in the womb, telling him that there would be long repercussions, long roundings if he tried to touch that shunt upon birth. And I am so eternally grateful to say that those conversations worked in the name of Jesus. As my high-risk doctor will attest, our miracle baby kept the shunt in his bladder for an astonishing 10 weeks, the longest he had ever seen in his career. This incredible feat gave our baby the critical time he needed for lung development, and against all odds, our baby was thriving. On September 6, 2023, our hearts expanded in ways we never thought possible when our perfect son, Baker Patrick Proud, was born. Baker defied every expectation, broke every barrier, and did so in the powerful name of Jesus. The doctors had prepared us for the worst. They weren't sure if he would be able to breathe on his own, if his kidneys would function, or if he would need immediate dialysis and placement on the kidney transplant list. But by the grace of God, Baker required none of these interventions. Our little miracle defied all odds, and we were home just 11 days later after a brief NICU stay. His birth was nothing short of extraordinary, a testament to God's faithfulness, His timing, and the power of prayer. God had been preparing us for this exact moment. In just 8 months, He doubled our family. After walking through the valleys of infertility, recurrent pregnancy loss, and our son's rare bladder condition. But through it all, God held us steady, reminding us that our child was deserving of life, and he had a plan far greater than what we could ever comprehend. This video offers a glimpse into our incredible journey. It captures the sacred moment when we first held both of our miracle babies together at once. In that moment, as we looked down at them, our sweet Lucy and our brave Baker, we felt a profound connection to God's kingdom and to our heavenly children like never before. We knew in that moment that we were surrounded by the love of both our children here on earth and those we had gifted to heaven. The feeling was overwhelming, holy, and pure. God's promises fulfilled in the most unexpected and beautiful way. Is this just a visit? I can say without hesitation that each of our 5 heavenly babies prepared our hearts to pave the way to be open and receptive, enabling us to welcome Lucy at a moment's notice, advocate for our son's precious life, and teaching us what it means to truly trust in his will and not our own. As I stand before you today, please know that my heart aches with you if you too have a baby in heaven or have struggled through the depths of infertility. But I also want to ask you this: where are you right now? Are you at the end of your rope, ready to stop trying and start trusting? Trusting that he has been with you in the waiting all along. Because here's the truth: no matter your circumstances, trusting in God's plan doesn't just ease the pain, it transforms it. And it will make your life infinitely greater than you ever thought possible. His plans are always better than our own, even when we can't see it yet. Thank you.
We forget that beautiful things like this happen. That's what this night's all about, to remind you that it is out there. It isn't all this hate that everyone spews at everyone. It's things like this that we need to concentrate more on and let other stuff go. Before I go on my real soapbox, our second speaker tonight is Pam Casina-Kurzman. Well, I've known Pam since high school, and she's a very special person. Don't worry, Pam, I won't tell the other story. But after the tragic death of a loved one, she searched for a sign to help her deal with the loss and how to move forward. She was struggling, thinking the sign was unattainable. Then, the sign she yearned for came in a very special and holy event over 5,000 miles away from Omaha. She will share her story tonight, entitled God's Reveal. Please welcome Pam Casina.
I grew up in Omaha, attended Blue Cross grade school, was a member of that parish. Went on to attend Gross Catholic High School, which is where I became friends with Teresa, about 2 rows over there. The summer before my senior year of high school, I was very involved with Gross. And the summer before my senior year, my father received a huge promotion, which caused us to move to the Chicago suburbs of Illinois. So that he could take up his new position as the administrative assistant of the president of the International Association of Machinists. This uprooted me just a couple of weeks before my senior year started, but I took it with a grain of salt, and it made me who I am today because I got uprooted for everything. And my first experience in public school, in a community public school with 1,500 in my graduating class. After I graduated from school, I was living on my own. I moved out on my own because I had lost my athletic scholarships to Nebraska that I was planning on. I was working 2 jobs just to make rent in a very expensive Chicago suburb. I decided that if I was going to struggle and be poor, I would rather come back to Omaha, be surrounded by my family and my little friends back there, and start school at UNO. So, I ended up getting an apartment with my eldest brother, Chuck Cosina, who was my person. He was the person I could always turn to, who always had my back, and who always made me feel like I could do anything. But less than a month after my 21st birthday, Chuck got into a big accident on a motorcycle with a semi-truck. The semi-truck unfortunately won. This was my first real experience with grief. It was all-consuming and completely debilitating. I took on the responsibility of taking care of my grandfather, Charles Cosina, who Chuck had been caring for before his passing. 6 months after Chuck's death, I realized that I was pregnant, which I had been told I could not ever get pregnant, with my ex-boyfriend's baby. I decided to give up my child for adoption and started going through the process of private adoption and abuse. At that point, I had moved into a house with some other college students and it never got warmer than 50 degrees there, so there was no way I could really raise a baby. I went through the process of private God has a way of sending us signs. Much like yours. Or as I like to call them, God signs, God winks, and now that I have made connections. Some of the sayings that I say aloud are, everything happens for a reason. You're exactly where you need to be, and we don't know how our struggles are inspiring others. These sayings became very important to me after I became a member of a certain body. Looking out into the audience tonight, I know there are others that are members of the same club. It is not a membership anyone wants to hold. It's not a membership any of us hold it upon anybody else to hold. My name is Mia, I'm the senior president. I'm a member of the Lost Child. Within 2 months of Anthony's birth, I had rushed my grandfather to the hospital because of severe intestinal bleeding. He was diagnosed with colon cancer and spent months in the hospital and rehab. When he returned home, I was once again his main caregiver. However, this time he had a colostomy bag. This was a life challenging like nothing I had ever experienced. I was still in college, working part-time jobs and raising a toddler 100% of my time. My grandfather eventually needed me to moved to a nursing home, and I eventually got a 2-bedroom apartment for Nate and me. However, I was now working full-time in my first career job and finishing my last few classes for my BS Business Marketing degree, Nate and I had an incredible relationship. Anybody that got to experience it was an awe. And part of it was because he was incredibly intelligent. I trained himself. He wrote the alphabet on his own. He was just insane. We could even finish each other's sentences, which is scary when he was only like 3 years old at this point. Really scary. And any of you that know me, like, you have no idea what I'm saying. I ended up starting Nate at St. Margaret Mary's at age 4 because he could already count backwards from 100 and do double-digit math. For those of us that have been single moms, nobody trusts you, you have no idea what you're doing. Somehow having a husband makes you a better parent. So, you know what's going on. This is one of my funniest stories about me. Is I started with there, the teacher at St. Margaret Mary's had been there at least 45, maybe 50 years. And she called me up after the first 2 days and said, what do you think you're doing starting a 4-year-old in kindergarten? You have no idea what's going on. He won't pay attention. He's not doing the alphabet. We're trying to count to 10. He's looking around. And I said, okay, so you want me to take him out of kindergarten? She said, yes. And I said, I will do that tomorrow if you do something for me. She goes, what do you want me to do? I said, can you just ask him to count backwards from 100? And she just laughed out loud. I didn't say anything. And she said, you're serious? And I said, yes. She called me back the next day and said, I have nothing to teach this child. That's what all the preschool people told me. And I am a marketing and business person. I have no idea. I tried to teach him how to write or to read and math. He could do double-digit math in his head without a piece of paper at 4 years old. So I said, I have to start him in school. There's no other option. I really didn't want to go to public school. I wanted him to go to Catholic school. So she said, well, we'll figure something out. So anyway, that gives you an idea of how incredibly smart he is. I graduated from UNO in May of 1991 and started our first company in August of 1991 with my college friend Kay Olson. It was a free partner magazine called Partnerships View. The following year, I married my ex-husband, and we had 3 children together, Chase, Kelsey, and Austin, and 2 of them in the audience. Austin was born a couple of days before Nate started, the last child was born a couple of days before Nate started high school at prep. So I had one starting high school, and I had an infant. Nothing like spreading them out. Due to 17. And he returned home every day. Peru is down I-75, so it's about an hour and 45 minutes, not every day, once a week he would come home. He turned 18 on September 17, 2004. He came into town, I took him to his favorite place, King Kong's. We kind of celebrated it, and then he went back to school. On Tuesday, September 20th, 11 days later, Nate and Pete Butler, remember that name? Nate's new best friend during his then only 6-week college experience. They stopped by my company, my new company, Apartment Finders, to see me. I was sold it. Nate had been one of my top leasing agents the last 2 summers at this company. And people always commented that they thought they were talking to a 25-year-old instead of 15 to 16-year-old kids. Nate had definitely become an old soul, and you had no idea you were talking to a teenager. That morning I was out in our apartments, but they waited for me, and when I came back, we had a short visit because Nate wanted to head back for his 3 o'clock football practice. Nate and Pete stopped on the way down to get ping pongs again, so it was twice. For the trip back, needless to say, it was his favorite. Approximately 2 hours after I hugged my son Nate for the last time and told him to study hard, it was in a fatal head-on construction accident with a semi-truck. Again, the semi-truck. We were not notified of the accident until Tuesday night. The police told us that they had passed from the accident and that Peter was life-flighted to the hospital and was basically lifeless. I insisted on seeing Peter before I saw Nate. I wanted to tell him how much Nate had admired him, though they had only had 6 weeks of friendship. To my surprise, when I walked into the hospital, Pete was sitting up, crisscross applesauce. I don't even have an ID, it's been 20 years. One arm was bandaged up, no cast, nothing. I stood there in complete shock. And I'm not sure where, I talk about angels a lot, but I have no idea where this came from. And I said, oh, Peter, 3 angels had to pull you out of that car. Pete is smaller than the last speaker. My son was 6'2", 180 pounds of solid steel. He was killed in a swimming accident, head-on collision with a semi-truck. Pete did not even have a concussion, not a single broken bone. He had this arm wrapped out because of the blast from the collision. When we had the funeral, I had Pete come up and sit with me. I had him right in the limousine. I did not want him to move like red to him or have any issues. People came up to me afterwards and said, where's the kid friends? And I said, well, he was sitting right next to me, Billy. He had nothing wrong with him. I said, I know. Nate would have given me the shirt off his back, very much like my brother John. He would have laid down his life for everybody. And I really believe, they said that, this is my truck said that he saw Nate with his arm broken. Neither one of them had seatbelts on. How did he not get broken? How did he survive? With nothing. Pete had had total, that I know of, 4 life instances where he showed up and he didn't. So this was the 3rd. He had another one after that, and has to do with this downtown when it burned down. So our world shattered that night. Tuesdays would never be the same after that. We were all devastated. My children had not experienced grief like this before. Chase was in 5th grade. Kelsey was in 3rd grade. Austin was in kindergarten at 5 years old. The very next day was my first Nate connection. A couple of moms stopped over, so at Holy Cross we had all school mass. That was Tuesday. Tuesday night. there, something fell from behind my dining room credenza. And I had to struggle to get it out. And as I got it out, it was Nathan's blue star from his from his 8th grade year at Holy Cross. And it listed what he did do in his future and what his confirmation and gift was and all this stuff. And so I started reading it out loud to them because I'm a mom grieving and I'm struggling with everything. And all of a sudden, I get to the confirmation name and it's Raphael. And I said, oh, there's a funny story about this. He really wanted to be true, and he didn't. He couldn't. And so he wanted, I think Michelangelo was his first gift. That was his favorite. And I said, you can't have an Indian girl. And he's like, well, they never really said that. I said, did they tell you to look for the saints? And he goes, yeah. But they didn't say I couldn't have an Indian turtle. So he came back a couple of days later and he goes, I'm going to be Raphael. How many people know who all the Ninja Turtles are? So he goes, well, then I'm going to be Raphael. And I'm like, now I have 3 other children and I'm taking care of this child. No, you cannot. Well, he goes, Mom, yeah, I can. He's an archangel. I'm like, really? I didn't know that. He goes, yeah, what are archangels? So I listed out Michelangelo, Gabriel. I said, no, I don't know who the archangel is. Supposed to Raphael. I'm like, okay, you can. So, but getting back to me pulling this out, the ladies are all just in awe and standing there freaking out. And I'm like, what's wrong? And they're like, I think it was Father Solomon at the time was our pastor. He says, at the all school mass, that was what the sermon was about. Today is the All Saints Day for the 3 archangels. How many angels did I say pulled Pete out of the car? It was the E, so like Christmas Eve, Archangel E of the accident. Don't know why I said that. So, that was my first godfather. Here the priest had said, nobody knows about Raphael. And he told us he was all about Raphael. Now my children weren't there because they were home. We had all not slept that night and tried to sleep in the same bed and everything else. So that was my first one. I'm like, okay, that is just really strange. All right. So that's number 1. Second was a few days later, cleaning out Nate's college journal, and one of his grade school friends, Brian, maybe one of his twins after was helping me clean out my room. And in slow motion, he comes across the room, and here is this letter that says, I want to see the person that he addressed to work address and to home address for a reason, so you know how to get it. And he pulls it out between the books and he goes, there's a letter to you. And I'm like, I haven't received a letter from college because he was home every weekend. So hands it to me in slow motion. It was like he was walking across. I know because God was like, I was losing it and I needed something from him. So if you're okay, I can move the letter. I'll try to put it together. I opened up the blue lawn chair you gave me, and out came the sand that all too often accompanies the items we bring home from Lake McConaughey, our favorite camping space. So it's a really fine white sand. It's amazing how something as insignificant as a few grains of sand can bring back such vivid memories of the past, which reminds me of the boys we helped with a ride that one day. I am glad you did it that day, because if you hadn't, I wouldn't be who I am today. I know you don't get a chance to see the movies, but please go out of your way to see the butterfly effect. The thought behind the movie is that something as simple as the flutter of a butterfly's wings can affect the future. I've learned, and this is what's going on in the wall for our house, need to get more peaches and cream oatmeal. Those, cuss word, and the R word don't have it. Love Nate, P.S. Don't use a cannon to kill a mosquito. Confucius. That's a 17-year-old. So that was Nate. That was my God gift. The next one was Chase and I went to the salvage yard to see the car that was Mabel. They had to do jars of life to get Nate out on the doors, and it had been there, I think, a week at that time. When we were going through the car, there was a light bulb in the back of the car. This was a head-on collision with the semi truck. The light bulb wasn't broken, it didn't ring, it wasn't in a container, or it wasn't in the box to protect it. And so I got out and take it home to see if it works. But it was a light bulb and a light. So it worked. The light came on, it worked. How in the world did this live through it? There were other moments during that visit, there were God connections, but that's one that applies later in the movie. All right, so the next one, fast forward. Kelsey is going to be starting her senior year at university. Her and I went to a meeting because one of our relatives had gone to the same meeting, and Nate had tried to come forward. A young man with blonde hair that had been in a car accident tried to come forward. The person didn't recognize it, but my cousin told me about it. So I booked an appointment with her. Didn't tell her my name, didn't tell her any information at all. My phone at that time had my apartment business on it, so there was no way they could pick up anything. When we walked in, she said, well, I thought you were coming with your husband. I said, no, I didn't say I was going with him, I'm going with my daughter. My daughter was struggling and trying to figure out her future, and so that was kind of what we were doing. We both loved the New England medium, or whatever her name was, and we couldn't see her when she came to Des Moines, and she sold out. So this was my thing to do. So when we were in this medium, she started with Kelsey, started talking to Kelsey about going to South Carolina, not in the Navy necessarily. Kelsey ended up going to college in South Carolina and met her fiance there, and did great in Coastal Carolina. Then she got over to me, and she said, Nate, or this blonde boy that was in an accident wants to come forward, but he wants to send your grandparents first. So my grandparents came and said that they were worried about my parents' health, and this is my dad's dad, and which their health did turn bad within a couple months after that. And then Nate came to me, and I had never told anybody about the light bulb. Nate or Teresa knew about it, but nobody else did. And she came forward and she said, the light was a gift. And I'm like, the light was a gift. Well, when you see the light next to you, and when I would be driving along, I would have a bright, shining white light over here, and I could never figure out where it was bouncing off, where it was coming. That's me. I'm sitting next to you in the car. I thought. And then he said, I need you to take a message to me. Okay. I want you to tell him that there's a redhead. I'm sending him a redhead. And he needs to marry her. Okay. Well, Pete and I had not really talked much after the funeral. I got to sit with me in the limousine and tried to start a relationship with him, but the family dynamics just weren't working. So by 2015, most of the sites were gone. I had had them my entire life, and now they were gone. So I thought maybe he was in purgatory that whole time, and now he's in the family, doesn't have time for me. was Joni Kennedy, who used to live in Nebraska. Everybody might have lost my sign of what his name was named, but that was pretty much it. Joni is down in South Carolina, I think, and she and I talked a lot because she's doing organic farming. So we go through the whole trip, and I'm thinking, if there's anywhere I'm going to get a message from Nate or get a Raphael thing, it's going to be in Italy, in Rome. I'm going to just get flooded with this. Yeah, nothing. So I couldn't find anything that said anything about Raphael. So the last day, well, first of all, if nobody's gone to Italy for canonization, worse than Nebraska Day. Those little nuns. I ended up being like the second tallest or the tallest in the world, being the bodyguard for all these people trying to hold them together. And by the time we got to where we were doing the canonization, I just needed to meditate and get it. We lost 2 people. So, and just meditate that I'm here. Mother Teresa has been my spiritual advisor my entire life since I heard about her, and I just want to meditate. And as I'm doing this, I started hearing people call me, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything else. I'm very focused. I'm not listening to you. And then I got more and more. And I turned around, and Denise and Joni Kennedy are freaking out, crying, very upset. And I look at her and I go, what? And Denise says, Joni is Peter's aunt. Peter was the one who's crying. Not only that, her 2 sons went to school up the road with me too. Goosebumps, I can't believe it. Joni and I are the only 2 people that have bought Wi-Fi service at this event. It's very expensive over there because my kids, I needed to because she's running the farm. She needed to. So she gets on her phone and she Facebooks to Pete Butler, you're not going to believe who I'm here with. And then my relationship with Pete Butler started over. So this is in September. Nate's anniversary is September 28th. I ended up getting a message from Pete a couple of days and said, would you mind meeting me at Nate's cemetery or at his grave? I haven't been to the cemetery with Pete since the day of the funeral. And I said, yeah,
she could talk to us about her battle with breast cancer and actually being cancer-free for 10 years. She agreed to speak, started getting her on the agenda, and then there was an unexpected turn. She's going to share with you her story tonight, Feeding My Fears with My Faith. Please welcome Vicki Bolte.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming tonight. As Jeff said, my name is Vicki Bolte, and my family and I have been parishioners here at St. Robert's for almost 25 years. Tonight, I'd like to share with you my journeys with breast cancer and how my faith has helped me navigate the challenges of cancer. Did you know that on an average, every 2 minutes, a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer in the U.S.? For me, my first diagnosis came at the age of 42. I discovered a lump in my right breast while doing a self-breast exam just weeks before my mammogram. While my husband tried to reassure me not to worry, and that it could possibly just be a thyroid, I just had this feeling that something was wrong. So I had my scheduled mammogram, which was then followed by an ultrasound, and then a biopsy. I'll never forget the day, July 9th, 2014. I was at work when I received a call that my tumor that was less than a centimeter was malignant. I remember just feeling numb, and I was trying to grasp the realization that I had cancer. I thought, how am I ever going to tell my husband and my children? We're just teenagers at the time. However, I knew that God was telling me that this battle was not mine, but His. Shortly after my diagnosis, I met with my surgeon, and he suggested that I have genetic testing done, as there were 9 family members on my father's side that battled cancer. So I met with a genetic counselor, and my test came back that I was positive for the BRCA1 gene. I was told that not only does this mutation have an increased risk of breast cancer, but ovarian cancer and others as well. Instead of a lumpectomy, I would have to have a double mastectomy, followed by the removal of my ovaries and tubes. Not only was I facing multiple surgeries, I had to undergo 4 rounds of chemotherapy. As I faced the many challenges that came with my diagnosis, I found that my faith in God became my anchor. I knew that for every situation we experience, God has a purpose. His purpose for my first diagnosis was to benefit my children and siblings so that they could have genetic testing done to determine their risk for developing cancer. For me, I thought I battled cancer once and for all as I celebrated 10 years of remission this summer. However, little did I know. This last July, I called the office of my plastic surgeon, Dr. Harry Johnson, for a follow-up appointment since it had been 10 years. He suggested that I have a breast MRI done to check my implants. Let's just say this MRI saved my life. It detected a tumor in the wall of my chest behind my right breast, the same breast where the original cancer was. I thought to myself, how can this be happening to me again? Yet I knew that it was divine intervention that pushed me to make this appointment as I was contemplating it for months. My dear friend Randy Preston reminded me that if I would have had the MRI done any time sooner, the tumor probably would not have even been there, since it was even like a centimeter in size. Following the MRI would be a series of tests that included a PET scan, followed by a biopsy, or should I say biopsies. My biopsy results came back that the tumor was benign. However, my oncologist, Dr. Robert Langdon, consulted with other specialists, and they determined that I needed another biopsy based on my PET scan. I made the decision to have my second biopsy at a different hospital. This biopsy came back with a malignant diagnosis. And the cancer was triple negative, which is the worst form of breast cancer. The doctor said it could not be removed surgically due to the risks and location of the tumor. As I was devastated by the news, I knew once again it was divine intervention that Dr. Langdon ordered a second biopsy. Soon after my second biopsy, I was told that I needed 12 weeks of chemotherapy for my first phase of my treatment plan. I thought to myself, how am I going to get through all these treatments? Because I know how I felt when I only had 4 of them. So I made the decision to pray with my sister-in-law, Crystal, before every treatment. It was in prayer that I found comfort as it reminded me that I was not alone. Crystal, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your uplifting prayers each week. As each week passed and the chemo was building in my system, I felt more sick and fatigued. It was during week 8 where I felt like I just hit a wall. I had asked God for a sign and a healing hand to get me through my last 5 treatments. As I was sitting in my usual chair in the chemo room, all of a sudden, an elderly woman entered the room. I saw her walking around looking for a chair. There was one right next to me, and she had asked if she could sit down. I said, absolutely. My husband began to spark up a conversation. Now, if you know my husband, his nickname is Mayor, and people know that he can talk to anyone. We introduced ourselves, and she said her name is Marlene. We talked about our cancers and our journeys. She seemed so excited that day, she shared with us that our doctor had given her the best news. With a smile on her face, she said that our doctor gave her at least 2 more months to live, and that she would be able to experience her last Christmas. I knew right then that God placed Marlene in my life to show me that there were others out there that were in the first place for me. It humbled me that day because I was feeling sorry for myself. Marlene could have sat anywhere she wanted that day because the room had plenty of empty chairs, but he placed her next to me. I truly feel that God places people in your life for a reason. And I thank him every day for my angel, Marlene. I also want to thank God for placing the Raymakers family in my life. Pat and Shirley and Nick, thank you for your continued support, not only to me, but for my entire family over these last 10 years. Throughout this experience, the importance of family and friends became undeniably clear. I want to thank my entire family, and especially my sisters, Chris, Jen, and Angela, for unwavering support. Thanks to Beth McGill, my sister Jen, and Shirley Raymakers, for organizing the meal train, as well as those who provided meals for my family. Thanks to Randy Preston for always being there when I needed you. And thanks to all my friends for always being a source of support and encouragement. To my children, Nick, Natalie, and Nate, please stand. You have always been my biggest cheerleaders. Thank you for believing in me, even on the day I didn't believe in myself. And last but not least, I want to thank my husband, Ron. Thank you for your unconditional love. I know I could have had cancer twice without you. Always being by my side. Thank you for being my rock. I am happy to report that we received the news this week that my latest CT scan was clear. And it showed no sign of cancer. I like to conclude with this. Faith doesn't always take you out of the situation or circumstance. More often, faith takes you boldly through the deepest valleys. Faith rarely takes takes away the difficulties, yet it graciously gives you the ability to handle it. And faith doesn't remove you from the storm or its path, but it is faith that calms you in the middle of the storm. Thanks again for attending tonight, and may we all be more like our friend Marlene during our struggles.
Thank you for that, Mickey. Just a short reflection on this. I think it shows a lot of what a type of a person Mickey is and her family, the support she has. I think that she really wanted to come up here and just give you a straight-ass victory speech. You know, she beat for 10 years. This was going to be her moment to just say, this is me being perfect. And then she gets kind of kicked in the teeth. But she didn't give up. She didn't call and say, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to come up here and let everybody know that's just the beginning of my battle. And I can win it with the power of God. So thank you for sharing that with us tonight. Now, our last speaker tonight is Karen McMillan. Now, we've all had all sorts of challenges presented to us concerning traveling around the world. I travel a lot with my wife. I mean, we get delayed flights, we get lost reservations, bad weather. Teresa, the ultimate optimistic travel professional, always just says it's all part of the adventure. Now, let's all think of the worst travel nightmare that you've ever experienced, and then let's compare it to our next speaker. I assure you that our stories are not comparable to Karen's. She will share a story entitled Our Journey with God's Plan. So please welcome Karen McMillan.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank Teresa for inviting me to speak tonight. When she asked me, I was a bit taken aback because public speaking isn't my forte. I asked her if I could think and pray about it, and she kindly agreed. During that week, I heard priests at daily mass say that our experiences with God are not just for us. They are meant to be shared. Well, that was my answer in the garden. It took me a long time to write this because there were so many sufferings and graces from each pilgrim and their families and friends. I wanted to share everything, but I realized that would take hours, and I only have 20 minutes. So I condensed the story to my own experience. In 2015, I had the privilege of visiting the Holy Land with Father Damien Lee and another group. It was a wonderful experience. Cool weather, no mishaps, and we saw everything as planned. The memories and graces from that trip were profound, and I knew I wanted to return someday. It truly brought Scripture to life for me, and the mysteries of the Rosary became more vivid as I stood in the places where they unfolded. Fast forward to May 2023, when Father Lee shared that he would lead another pilgrimage to the Holy Land in October. I shared this with my mom, Liz Schlitter, my sister, Stephanie Beckman, and my Aunt Connie Brenner. And miraculously, we all determined we could make it happen. The excitement was palpable, and I couldn't wait for them to witness everything I had experienced on my first trip. This was going to be a special journey. Everything is in God's hands. These words would soon resonate with me and 31 others from the Archdiocese of Omaha and the Diocese of Lincoln, along with others from across the United States in our pilgrimage group, when we were faced with the circumstances of our trip to the Holy Land. Father Damien Lee, pastor of St. Francis Borgia Parish in Blair, and St. Patrick's Parish in Tacoma, led the Holy Land pilgrimage with Father Sean Timmerman, pastor of the Church of the Holy Spirit in Plattsmouth of the Archdiocese of Lincoln. Our pilgrimage group was spiritually prepared for this journey. Father, we met with us a few times before we left and asked everyone to fast, pray, and attend daily mass as often as possible. He also recommended going to confession to be spiritually prepared to receive all the grace that God would want to give us. On October 2nd, 2023, we arrived in Tel Aviv, Israel on a beautiful sunny day. However, once we reached our hotel, our guide informed us that our itinerary will change slightly due to Shabbat, a Jewish holiday. Some sites will be busier than usual, as many Jewish people visit Israel during this time. I started hearing a little voice in my head saying, this isn't how it went the last time I was here. Once we started visiting the sites of Israel, we would pray the rosary on the bus each day, along with praying the surrender novena. I was familiar with this novena because my mother had given it to me a few years earlier when I was having some personal difficulties. It helped me so much. I was learning to give everything to the Lord, good or bad, and let it go. Trust in Him, and He will take care of everything. I have never stopped doing it. So when Father introduced this novena to our group to pray each day on the bus, it gave me great joy. Because of this novena and our preparation, we were surrendering everything to the Lord, all our worries and all our fears that we brought with us from home to the Lord. Despite the changes, we visited incredible sites, like the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, which provided a rich historical context. We saw the area of the visitation, Jericho, where some of us rode camels, the Jordan River to renew our baptismal vows, and Bethlehem, where our Lord was born, to name a few. Then, on October 7th, early in the morning, we received alarming news. There had been an attack on the Gaza Strip, approximately 120 miles from where we were in Jerusalem. Hamas launched a coordinated and unprecedented attack on Israel, marking one of the deadliest days in the country's history. This assault by Hamas coincided with the Jewish holiday. The attack involved a barrage of rockets. Reports indicate that between 4,000 to 5,000 rockets were fired from Gaza into the southern Israel, targeting civilian areas and military installations. Simultaneously, Hamas fighters breached the security barriers separating Gaza from Israel, infiltrating multiple communities and military bases. This led to significant casualties, with estimates of over 1,000 Israelis killed, including civilians and soldiers, and thousands more injured. The attack was characterized by its brutality, with reports of house-to-house assaults and the taking of hostages, further escalating the crisis. In the aftermath, Israel declared a state of war, and military operations intensified in response to the attacks. The situation quickly escalated into a broader conflict, with significant military actions taken by both sides, leading to widespread devastation and humanitarian concerns in the region. This context is crucial as it highlights the gravity of the situation during our pilgrimage, providing a backdrop to the challenges and fears faced by our group. It underscores the unexpected nature of our journey and the profound impact of the events unfolding around us. The airports were shut down, and crossing borders was impossible. We had no choice but to continue our journey, and so we chose to trust. Our guide told us we were moving north to Nazareth, so we would be a little further away. It was providential, and we knew the Holy Spirit was upon this whole experience because we were already surrendering everything to the Lord. It helped us to be calm and at peace throughout this time. As news spread about us being in a country at war, prayers from around the world began pouring in, Catholics and non-Catholics alike. We were deeply humbled and grateful to everyone who prayed for our protection and safety. So we made our way to Nazareth, stopping at Caesarea National Park and Mount Carmel along the way. Over the next few days, we visited beautiful sites like the Sea of Galilee, Magdala, and the Basilica of the Annunciation. In the evenings, our group would gather to share the graces we received during the day. Father Lee and Father Timmerman were very prayerful and reminded us that this was not an interruption to our pilgrimage. This was our pilgrimage. Sometimes things don't go as planned, but God works through everything. Their words were very encouraging, especially as many pilgrims started experiencing respiratory and gastrointestinal issues that had begun a few days before the attack. My immediate family on this pilgrimage each had their own sufferings and graces from these experiences. After a few days, we had to return to Jerusalem because our hotel in Nazareth was booked. This was concerning as it now brought us within the limits of the conflict. On our way back, we saw military vehicles preparing for combat. Witnessing this was sobering, and I found myself praying for all those affected by the conflict. Upon returning to our hotel in Jerusalem, we received instructions on what to do if the sirens went off. My sister Stephanie was my roommate. We familiarized ourselves with the emergency procedures, which was unsettling. Unfortunately, Stephanie started feeling nauseous on top of her other sicknesses and decided to stay in her room. When I went to the cafeteria in the basement, the sirens suddenly blared, and we were instructed to head to the bunkers. In a panic, I worried about my sister being alone upstairs. I rushed to use the elevator, but security stopped me. I tried to call her, but I couldn't get service from the basement. I was more worried about her than anything else in that moment. Shortly after, we were told we could go back and sit in the cafeteria. Everything was okay. Some from our group believed it to be a false alarm, so I was relieved. I immediately went to the elevators to check on my sister and was stopped again. Security explained it had not been a false alarm. When the radar system detected rockets, it triggered the alarm. However, the missiles did not penetrate, so the alarms turned off. They still wanted us to remain in the cafeteria to be sure all was okay. Eventually, we were able to go back to our rooms, and my sister was okay. By this point, around October 9th or 10th, we knew our families were suffering. From news reports, they were witnessing the atrocities of the attack on civilians in the escalating conflict and feared deeply for our safety. We knew what was happening, but we weren't afraid. We knew that God placed us there. He knew the day we were born, that we would be on this pilgrimage at this time. Whatever it looked like, whatever His will was, we were at peace with it. On October 10th, we prayed and walked the Via Dolorosa, the way of the cross. Before entering, we were stopped by guards, ensuring the area was safe. Once inside, it felt eerily quiet, but it allowed for deeper prayer. We celebrated Mass at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus was crucified and buried. This was a tremendous grace for all of us, that God still allowed us to see the holy sites, even during these unsettling times. We were taking it day by day, waiting for our guide to give us notice when the borders would open, so we could cross into Jordan. As our family's concern for our safety deepened, they began exploring options to get us out of Israel. Through a network of affiliations, they were able to connect with an individual. Go Texas? Is that right? So it's a cousin of Teresa. We're able to connect with an individual who specialized in extractions and provided a plan that would allow for us to charter a bus with armed security that would transport us to Amman International Airport and then board a charter flight to Cyprus, where we would then make arrangements to fly home. Their worry was palpable, and it reminded us of the love and support that we were back home. On October 11th, we received word that a bus had been able to cross into Jordan. So we all packed up, and after hours of travel and waiting to cross the border, we finally arrived in Omaha, Jordan. It would take several more days to secure flights from Jordan, but fortunately, Holy Land Travel was able to set us up in a hotel until our departure. After our first night in Omaha, my sister's health took a severe turn for the worse. She was so ill that she could barely speak and had to be admitted to a hospital in Jordan. During this difficult time, our priest offered us Eucharistic adoration and daily mass, and we prayed fervently, especially for Israel and my sister's recovery. Holy Land Travel helped us book most of our flights back to the United States, but our group was split up and scheduled to leave at different times on different days. My mom, sister, aunt, and I were set to return home on Tuesday, October 17th. However, my sister was still in the hospital. My mother or I planned to stay with her until she was released, but her husband insisted on being with her and felt it was unsafe for two American women to be alone near a country of war. He immediately flew to Omaha and accompanied her home a few days later after she was discharged. My sister showed incredible strength, and I was so relieved to hear her voice on the phone the day after we left. Despite our ordeal, we experienced many blessings. We received numerous graces and witnessed conversions within our families. One of my adult daughters called me crying while I was in Nazareth and shared that she had started praying again and wanted to renew her faith. She said, "Mom, this has shown me that at any moment everything can change. I need God in my life." Hearing this was a tremendous gift, as I had been praying and fasting for her spiritual renewal for a long time. God's plan didn't end when I returned home. My parents and sister had visited Medjugorje, Herzegovina, and the Philippines, and it had been on my heart ever since. Recently, some dear friends had been making frequent pilgrimages there, and after my Holy Land trip, I felt a stronger calling than ever before. An unexpected opportunity for a trip presented itself much sooner than I intended, but given the ordeal we had just experienced, the stress it put on my loved ones, and the expense of another trip, it seemed outrageous to even hope it would happen. I prayed to our Blessed Mother, asking her to show me the way if I was meant to go. Although it had taken weeks for others on the pilgrimage to receive compensation for the trip insurance claims they submitted, 1 week after filing my Holy Land claim, I received a check for the exact amount of the Medjugorje trip. So when I shared the good news with my husband, knowing that this money could be used for a variety of other purposes, I was overwhelmed when he said, "Well, I better get the bill tags off your luggage. Mother is calling." The pilgrimage taught me what God can do with trust and suffering. We experienced countless graces in events that continue to impact our lives. I know many others feel the same. I have a few cards available of the surrender and obedience for those who may not have heard of it before, and my husband and my daughter all, and as I am one's interested. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, obviously, that was an incredible story, but I did give you guys an assignment a few minutes ago, so has anybody got a story that can top that one? The 3-hour delay, or maybe sit next to someone that you don't really like on a plane, going to be easily handled from here on out. I just like to end with this tonight. I'm not a real religious guy, but as I sat here and I listened to all these stories, I was thinking, why do people want to attend events like this? And I think the thing that everyone needs to realize is it really just puts your life into perspective. Life is tough. And if you don't believe in yourself and in your family and your friends, and especially your God, you're going to lose. While believing doesn't guarantee success, But non-belief in our God, it pushes us towards failure. If you're given a challenge, don't give up. Push forward, rely on your family and your friends, and let God come to you. You're not alone. God is always there, if you let him be. So tonight, thank you for all coming tonight. We're going to have some refreshments in the back, in the Narthex. Have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year.